It's a historic year for edge prospects in the 2025 NFL Draft, but which of the very talented names made it into our top 10? Let's dive in. Ryan, this is a crazy historic year for talented edge rushers in the 2025 NFL Draft. Let's dive right in with our three tiers. We've got quality starters, plus starters, and then blue chip. You could probably guess who that blue chip prospect is. First off, with quality starters at 10 through 7. Number 10 is Jordan Birch from Oregon. Number 9 is Mike Green from Marshall. Number 8 is Landon Jackson. Number 7 is Princely Umanmielen from Ole Miss. Of this grouping of 4 guys, who stands out the most is we've got a lot of players that have traits that could pan out to them becoming more than just quality starters.
Yeah, I think the two that pop out just initially are the high-end pass rushers potentially on that in that tier, and that's Princely Umanmielen out of Ole Miss, formerly of Florida, and then Mike Green, obviously the dynamic pass rusher out of Marshall. I think some people are going to look at this list, Joe, and say, you guys are pretty low on Mike Green, but I do think that when you really just kind of sort through his skill set, I think he has a high upside as a pass rusher, but is he ever going to be a quality run defender, like a plus run defender? I do think that there's a little bit of a one-trick pony to his game, similarly to Princely Umanmielen, but I really think that Princely is one of the more underrated players in this draft because that kid has elite explosiveness. He has a pass rush plan, and his closing speed and burst around the track are some of the best in this draft. You told me that both these players ended up being two of the best pass rushers in this group. Just overall, I would definitely believe you in this 2025 class, excuse me.
Right. There's definitely question marks of like what Mike Green is as a run defender and if he can be more consistent there. He is a kick-ass player, and I think that he's still going to go in the first round, at the very least early on in the second, if those off-the-field concerns end up catching up to him. He's still very, very gifted. He's got great hand usage for an not an underclassman, but a younger G5 prospect. Very rare to come by. I, though, really like Umanmielen for the insane bend and burst that he's able to generate. And then I was super high on Landon Jackson, which kind of pushed him up in our consensus rankings here. Jackson isn't as flexible as the rest of the guys in this group, but he tested really well, and he's big, strong, powerful. He's somebody who goes early on day 2, one of the first few picks in the second round for me, that just ends up being super high motor, super powerful, and ends up being an awesome run defender.
Yeah, he's one of the guys that I think we have just like a little bit of a slight disagreement on because I love the frame that he brings to the table. I think he's a very talented athlete as well. I just think he's a little bit in that qualification of what exactly is his style and what's his identity. I think there's some times where you look at him and say, should he be a guy that just bulks up and be a little bit more of a 3-4 type of interior player, like kind of that big end that can kind of do a little bit of everything, a lineman versatile, or does he stay at his weight and be a true 4-3 hand in the dirt potential difference maker as a strong side defensive end? Like he is just a little bit of not directly a tweener, but a guy that I do wonder if he exactly knows what role that he should be best at on the NFL level.
Moving on to tier 2, which is our plus starters, guys that we think that go on to be Pro Bowl caliber pass rushers. Number 6, we've got Jalon Walker from Georgia. Number 5, Shemar Stewart from Texas A&M. Number 4, Nick Scourton from Texas A&M as well. Number 3, Michael Williams of Georgia. And then number 2, James Pearce Jr. of Tennessee. And before anyone belly aches over maybe a wide range of, or why we're off the typical just general media consensus, all of these guys are lumped together with basically the same grades. They're all in that same general ballpark of guys that are late to mid first rounders. There is no massive range of like James Pearce Jr. is an all-pro and Jalon Walker is barely a rotational player. Now, all of these guys have the ability to be super important for their team's success. We just valued certain traits over others. Who are the guys that stick out the most in this group?
Well, I think Jalon Walker is an easy one to have a conversation with because I just letting the cat out of the bag for a second. I also am going to rank him on my linebacker rankings as well. So I'm going to rank him in 2 different position groups for the 2025 class. he's in that tweener mold a little bit, right? Like I do ultimately think that the Hassan Reddick role on the NFL level is best for Jalon Walker, getting him screaming off the edge consistently on the NFL level. Like I think that that's the best version potentially, but he is right now a little bit of a tweener. He was asked to do a lot of things at Georgia. Is he an every down edge player on the NFL level? Like that's the concern that you have for him, Joe. So he's a quick one, but I will say Shemar Stewart could end up being the second best edge in this class when everything is said and done, or he could be like outside of the top 10. There is a big peak and valley for a guy like Shemar Stewart because the tools are great, the production is not, and the consistency to finish plays is not right now, but you're kind of banking on upside and traits with a player like Stewart.
Jalon Walker lands where he does because I was lower on him, a lot lower on him than you were. He was at the very back end of my top 10. I had him ranked as my 9th edge rusher. I know some people are going to just completely freak out over that, but I have concerns for what you just talked about, him being a tweener. I don't have faith that the NFL, some teams are going to know how to use him really well. Some are not. A lot of defensive coordinators are sometimes too smart for their own good. Whenever we talk about a guy not fitting the typical mold in that he fits into multiple positions because of the physical profile, because of the way that he played in college, those guys a lot of times are misdeployed. And you just mentioned Hassan Reddick. We see in the college game right now, Harold Perkins is a great example of this right now. They've had multiple defensive coordinators and none of which have been able to figure out what the hell to do with him. It happens a lot in the college and pro game. And I have a fear that if Walker goes to the right situation, I think that he could end up becoming the second or third best prospect in a few years from this class, but he just needs to be used correctly.
I agree with you. The situation and the defensive coordinator that he lands with is going to be important. Joe, I just wanted to quickly hit on before we get into the top tier here. I just can't quit James Pearce Jr. out of Tennessee. I understand that there were some maturity concerns right there, but this young man, 6'5" plus, almost up about 250 pounds. He's explosive. He's dynamic. If his head is screwed on straight and he has clear vision, I think he could end up being maybe the best pure pass rusher in this class. Obviously, the guy we have at number 1, I think, is the best overall player, but the tools are still there for James Pearce Jr., and his production has been very good the last 2 years for Tennessee as well. The question is if he definitely does want to be a great football player. If he does, I think the upside is still immense.
We both had him as our second-ranked pass rusher. My only thing with him, he does have more production than a guy like Shemar Stewart, who these are both traitsy guys. I think he has a lot more tangible disruption on film as well than Shemar Stewart. Both kind of fit in that same bucket. But my only thing with James Pearce Jr. is it's a little concerning to me that we didn't see a jump. We didn't see that improvement that we were hoping for that was going to come from last summer throughout the 2024 college football season. And that kind of plays into what we've talked about, where is he as fully bought in as he could be? Because if he was fully bought in, he would have shown us that improvement. We would have seen more involvement in the run game. We would have seen a more developed pass rush moveset, and he's still just winning with length and flexibility. One more guy I want to bring up before we move on to the blue chip tier, Mykel Williams. I think that I actually feel for this group of raw prospects that are really talented, I feel the best about Mykel Williams having a successful career because I think at the very least, he ends up being just a really good run defender if he doesn't end up being a productive pass rusher. And there's certainly value in that. Jadeveon Clowney, who didn't become the pass rushing menace that we all thought he could have been, was still an awesome run defender. And that was why he kept getting opportunities. And he was always like a guy that was sought after by playoff teams that needed a final piece for their defense. His power profile and his just overall extension and hand usage against the run, I think, raises his floor compared to guys like Jalon Walker, Shemar Stewart, and James Pearce Jr.
It's very fair. The tools are exciting. The upside is still there, and he was mostly banged up during the 2024 season, so there's a little bit of an asterisk on him. But I want to see it a little bit more. And I think when you compare him to a guy like the other toolsy pass rushers in this class, like a Shemar Stewart, who both lack production, I do think that I just personally just bank a little bit more on those athletic gifts. I think Mykel Williams is very athletic, but I think Shemar Stewart and those types of guys or just have a little bit more high-end athletic traits. But Mykel certainly has a track to becoming a very good player if he hits.
I lied. I want to talk about Nick Scourton very quickly before we do move on here. He is a guy that I am very high on and I really like because I think that he is so powerful And that Purdue tape that he had before he transferred to Texas A&M, I think showed what he eventually could be, was just having like really great power moves as a pass rusher. He was playing a little bit too heavy this season. It was very clear on film. He wasn't as flexible. He wasn't as fluid as we saw when he was at Purdue. And he's back down to that original weight after he was playing at a super heavy one while he was at Texas A&M. From what we were told, it seems like he was asked to get heavier to play within Mike Elko's scheme. But he's a player who maybe underwhelmed if he goes on to outplaying expectations out of any of these players in our top 10. I would say that Nick Scourton, if he ends up becoming that, I wouldn't be shocked.
Yeah, so he was a player that at Purdue played about 260, 265, and for whatever reason, the Aggies asked him to play over 280 pounds to be more of a strong side defensive end. I think it was a very bad decision by them, obviously, because it made him a little bit sluggish. It zapped a little bit of his explosiveness. We saw at the combine he was back down to about 257 pounds. Nick Scourton at 260, 265 pounds, for me, is a slam dunk first rounder. If he's a guy that's playing over 280, then he's a guy that's going to be moving down the boards very quickly. But I do think seeing him back at that weight is very promising for him to get back to that first round type talent.
Tier 1, blue chip, as we've done for some of these position groups. I don't care what anyone says. People get so upset when you use the word generational. Abdul Carter is generational, and we said this in the scouting report video that we did on him. I stand by this. The fact that we saw a week-by-week progression and improvement, the fact that he was able to learn on the job as a former off-ball linebacker turned edge rusher, I think truly paints the picture of what he's going to become after a full season in the NFL, around a NFL coaching staff, an NFL training staff, and then eventually getting a full off season as a guy that is developing and bulking up and getting stronger. Abdul Carter, the ceiling is so high for him to be a perennial All-Pro.
Well, we just had Femi Oladejo, who is out of UCLA, on the podcast, Joe, and he talked about a similar journey, right? That he was only a one-year starter and a guy that had only played on the edge for a single season. And when you really put that into context with Abdul Carter, knowing the athlete he is at 6'3", 250 plus pounds, the explosiveness, the ability to move all over the place, but then you compound that with the fact that he's only been doing it on the edge for one season. Imagine year 2 on the edge for Abdul Carter. Imagine year 3. Imagine year 4. The upside is immense, and this is far from a finished product, which is why it makes him such an exciting and such an elite prospect in this class.
Let us know in the comments. Who did we miss? Who do you agree with us on? Hit that like button and subscribe. We'll talk to you later.